Hello, welcome back to the video lecture series for Introduction to Data Programming using Scala. In this video we're going to talk about object declarations. Now in the last few videos we've been talking about how you can declare classes and what you put in your code to write classes. Remember that classes are effectively blueprints for making objects, and you instantiate objects using new, and what that tells Scala to do is to create an object from the class. Object declarations are in many ways very similar to class declarations, but as the name implies, they don't make a whole class of objects, they define a single object. Unfortunately, this is where terminology gets a little bit more challenging. When we write a object declaration, so if we come inside of the REPL here, I could write an object and give it a body, and inside of here I can put the same types of things that I would put inside of a class. I could put a method, so I'll put a variable in there. Let's define I really have no specific thing that I'm doing here. I'm making this rather mutable. That'll work. Now, if this had been, instead of being an object, if this had been a class, this would have set up the ability to make objects, and I would have said new test object, and then I could have played with those if I had given them a name. In this case, though, this actually declares an object, and its name is test object. And so if I want to get into things in there, I do exactly what I would have done with if I had a val that was equal to a new on some class. Test object is the name of my object, and I use the standard dot notation to get to things inside of it. So for example, I can call func1, and now if I look at the I value, it's 1. If I call it again, it prints out 2, and I has been incremented to 2. Okay, so inside of your object declarations, you can put all the things that you're used to putting inside of a class, but you're only making one of these. I'm not setting up the ability to make a whole bunch of objects. I am just making a singleton object here. Some of the differences between this and a class: first off, I can't give any arguments here. Okay, so inside of a class, I would have followed the name. I could have put a set of parentheses and given it arguments. I can't do that for an object. It doesn't make sense for an object. When I did that for a class, it made sense because when I called new and gave it the class name, I could then follow that by arguments and tell it what to build the instance with. I never build this test object. In some ways, the declaration here is constructing it. One other thing to note about this: while this creates a singleton object, it produces a singleton object in the scope that you're inside of. So here, when I put it at the top level here in the REPL, it makes 1, and it just exists. If I were writing in a script and I put it at the top level of a script, it would just create that one object. However, if I put an object declaration inside of a class, then I get one instance of that object in every instance of the class. So it exists, there is one of them, and it exists inside of the scope in which you declare it. So you might wonder, why do we want these objects? Well, there are many places that you can use objects in Scala. There are two that really stand out to us at this point, and we're going to cover these two in the next two videos. We're going to look first at how we can use objects to make applications in Scala, and then second, we're going to look at the use of objects as for companion objects to classes. So we'll come back in the next video and we'll look at applications, and then we'll come back again and look at the companion objects. See you again.